Welcome everyone to this edition of City Chat with City Magazine. My name is Kilee Harmon and I'm the general manager of City Magazine. And today we are visiting with Kurt Snyder, who is the executive director of the Heartview Foundation. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good, Kilee.
Don't be nervous.
I am. Terrified.
Don't be terrified. Well, it's great having you on the show today, Kurt, and because the Heartview Foundation is a really amazing organization. But for those who do not know what it is, give us the background. When did it start? What's the purpose? And all that good information.
You bet. October of 1964, we were established in Mandan, so most of our time as an organization was in Mandan. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we have treated over 24,000 individuals and their family for substance abuse issues. The look of Heartview and the program and operations have changed a lot over the years. Originally in the old Mandan Hospital, it expanded in the 80s to become a 91-bed inpatient facility, and had over 100 employees. Through the 90s, there was a lot of changes. We served a lot of Canadian individuals, and they quit coming to North Dakota for treatment services, and insurance coverage changed a lot. So it was in the late 90s that the Heartview Foundation sold the building in Mandan and moved to Bismarck, and ended up in our new location in downtown Bismarck.
Okay, so now you guys moved to Bismarck, and you had a location, but now you just went through a really big major renovation, it looks like. Tell us about that.
You bet. We actually leased from at 101 East Broadway Avenue, and we leased there for quite a few years. So in July of 2006, we purchased the building. In November of 2007, we had renovated 1/3 of the building to offer 12-bed residential facility. And just more recently, we renovated the remaining 2/3 just this last year, a $700,000 renovation that really has just put that facility and the services we offer, we're in a good place. It's very nice.
Now, what are all of the types of services?
Well, we offer a wide range of services, including high-intensity residential, social setting detox, all the way down to education, DUI seminars, and community education. And in between that array of services includes outpatient day treatment services, outpatient evening and aftercare services, just a ton of different services that would be a long list to name.
To name them all. Well, okay, so now when your renovation ended, you guys just the flood just happened. So you didn't really do a whole lot of celebrating, but did you guys just recently have your open house, I believe?
We had the open house in late July. And yes, we finished right at the time of the flood, and it was very difficult to celebrate because there were so many people going through difficult times. We actually had 4 staff on the wrong side of the dike, so we've since had some open houses, and are very, very excited and proud of the new space that we have.
So now, when did you start with Heartview? How did you get involved?
Well, I started there in October of 2002, and I was kind of one of the first hires after the downsizing. So there was about 10 staff, and we did outpatient-only services. And so I was hired as an addiction counselor, and I did an evening program for a couple years before becoming the director in January of 2005.
Now, what has been the hardest part about your job? Because and what has been the best part at the same time, would you say?
Well, it is very challenging. However, I think a smart individual once said, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. And I definitely love what I do. I love the people I work with. We have a great staff. The patients that we serve, they come in with a lot of despair and broken, and the hope, when we see the hope return in their eyes and the light of the fulfillment of their life again coming back to them. It's really a rewarding experience. So, what we do is important. We help people who are lost find their way again.
So now, how long of a program is it?
Well, it really depends on what program you would go into. For example, if you went into our residential program, it tends to be about 4 to 5 weeks, depending upon your individual circumstances and needs. And then we look at stepping people down into outpatient setting. But their involvement with the Heartview Foundation from beginning to end would somewhere between around 4 to 5 to 6 months.
Okay. So have you ever had anybody that has gone through the program that had tremendous results and are out now actually working at Heartview?
Oh, yes. We have quite a few, actually, that are, success stories that have returned to work. Actually, the director of counseling is a Heartview alumni from the 80s. I mean, we have a counselor there that's been there for 40 years. That's alumni from the late 60s. So, and more recently with our residential staff, we have quite a few staff members that work in our residence that are recovering and living a different life.
Now, is there any other organization in the Bismarck-Mandan area that kind of has a similar mission, helping those individuals find the light again in their life to overcome their challenges? I mean, is there any other organization that you guys work closely with?
Well, there are different providers in the community. The way substance abuse services is set up in the state of North Dakota is that there's public and private, and the public are funded through federal block grant money, state dollars, and so the public within our community would be West Central Human Service Center. Okay. And then there's a litany of other private providers, starting from a small one-person shop to an organization that has 4 or 5. We are definitely the biggest private in the region.
Okay. Very cool. So now, how do you guys stand apart from those other ones besides being the biggest? I mean, what's the differences in your programming, if there are any?
Well, I think that there are, and things that we're excited about and that set us apart are things like we are the only NIDA clinical trial site in the state and in the region. And what that is it's the National Institute of Drug Abuse, and that is a national organization that takes and it does studies on what types of treatments work best. And based upon the scientific data that comes up with the best practice evidence, they then bring it out and roll it out to our profession. So, we're a part of a lot of the groundbreaking kinds of activities that are done in our field, and that's an exciting thing. We have a multi-disciplinary staff. We have a medical director that's double boarded as an internal medicine doctor and a psychiatrist. We have a consulting psychologist. We have 2 nurses, registered nurses. We have 8 licensed addiction counselors. We provide acupuncture services, yoga, art therapy. Wow. We have just a ton of people that come together to help provide information on nutrition, stress and anger management, just a ton of different stuff. So
do you guys just mostly focus with alcohol, substance abuse, or is it, like prescription drugs and, or other narcotics, or what are all the substances that you guys do work with?
Well, we see primarily alcohol. Most folks, probably 70% of the folks we serve have alcohol as a primary diagnosis, alcohol dependence or abuse. But we see all the other substances, including prescription drug abuse or dependence. We see methamphetamine, cannabis. We see all of the different other drugs besides alcohol. We are not a site that treats sexual addictions or eating disorders.
Okay.
Or gambling. However, some of our folks have other issues as well that we would collaborate with other providers on as well.
That's interesting. So when it comes to I kind of just lost my question. I forgot what I was going to ask you. When it comes to all of the different substances that are out there, how has it changed throughout the years, would you say, with the way you guys identify, the actual substance that is being abused and the processes that you go through in order to help them come back to a better life?
Well, it has. Are you talking about the services, the core services?
Yeah,
how did they change, or
yeah.
how did the drugs that we're seeing change?
Both, actually. Both would be.
Okay. Well, let me start
very good question.
with
Thank
the drugs. Many people don't think of alcohol as a drug, but we as a state lead many categories about alcohol as a drug of abuse. We have the highest rates of binge drinking and the highest rates of alcohol dependence and abuse in the nation. And those are statistics that as a state we shouldn't be proud of and are very alarming. So alcohol is primarily the drug of choice in North Dakota.
And I was going to say, especially because, we have such a great area. Our economy is great, our job ratios are great, and it's surprising to hear that we have the highest rate of binge drinking when it seems like everything else in our little state is doing great.
Well, I love our state, and I think we have tremendous family values and traditions, and by no means am I anti-alcohol. However, I think that there's a cultural component to it that, parents, sometimes we hear parents say, well, they're going to do it anyway, so we're going to provide a safe place for them to drink, versus the stance that alcohol is illegal till you're 21, you're not supposed to do it, we don't condone it. Look at small-town North Dakota. North Dakota towns are drying up, and in some circumstances we co-op our churches and our schools. Small towns can't keep a grocery store a lot of times. However, they have 2 bars.
It's always
and it's the social meeting place. It's they thrive still, and so there's a lot of things to our culture that brings alcohol to the forefront, maybe in a negative way. Which I think there's a lot of things we could do different. Other drugs, there was a drug, the methamphetamine epidemic in the 90s and early 2000, and that really did change. I think the Attorney General did an awesome job with being proactive with laws and different regulations to step on the meth labs, and we've seen a lot of that in our treatment programs. However, many of those folks went to the criminal justice system and ended up being served in the prison system. Currently, our new trend is prescription drug abuse. It's an epidemic nationwide and within our state, and that not only includes the prescriptions from the physicians, but also other narcotics that then come into play, like heroin or other street drugs, the narcotics.
So now I had heard a study that it's prescription drug use is really, really high in students or in teenagers, which is really scary to think that they play this game where they all gather together and throw a pill out on a table and each take a different pill, and they have no idea what the pill is or what the pill will do. So are you guys seeing a lot more younger age kids coming in through the program, or would you say that prescription is more for adults?
Oh, it's definitely with the kids, and we see a lot of it. And I think one thing that's really striking about it, I was in a group one time where I heard a young man talk about his methamphetamine use, and he hung his head in shame. And the message that he had gotten from us as a community and from us as policymakers and leaders was methamphetamine's bad. It's a bad drug, and it hurts and creates all this damage, and it's a bad thing. Then on the other side of the room, a young man talked about his prescription drug use. And he talked about it like it was a badge of honor. He was proud of it. It was, not dirty like methamphetamine, but it was actually, it's a legal prescription. It's, does all these good things. And the message that I think the kids are getting in whatever way they're getting it is that it's not as dangerous, and that it's legally prescribed, and it has all these good uses. And so there's a lot of danger in what we're seeing there. And, I think something that I think people should know is that how do kids get them? Because we don't see the kids having a long history of doctor visits or doctor shopping. It's hard as a 16-year-old to have chronic pain and get prescribed whatever. So they're not in the emergency rooms and those types of things. What they're doing is they're getting them off the street and they're getting them out of their families' medicine cabinets. People hold on to those drugs, and it's really important that people dispose of those medications and monitor those medications while they have them, because that's a definite place where they're getting them. So it's hard to hear as a parent or as a family that you may be supplying a drug that's really damaging your child's future or life situation.
Well, and the other way that I heard is that they're going to their grandma and grandpa's and grabbing it from their medicine cabinets, like you said, other family members and such. But for everybody who's just tuning in, right now we are visiting with Kurt Snyder, who is the executive director of the Heartview Foundation. And now going back to that question that I asked really, really long time ago with 4 other questions in one, how has your practices changed when it comes to helping these individuals?
You bet. That's a great question, and I think that when some people in the community that have a long history with Heartview, and we've served a lot of people, many people have a family member or friend that went through Heartview. There was things called Family Week that was really just a difficult time in our programming because of how hard it was for patients and families. We're a profession that was a paraprofession. We came out of recovering folks that instead of just AA or Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, they came up with ways to treat people in settings more clinically. And over the years, as we've progressed as a profession, it's changed a lot. And a good example would be there used to be a belief that you had to break somebody down, their barriers, their defenses, their denial, in order to build them back up. And in some circumstances, that was demeaning. It was not fun. There was a lot of swearing going on, things like that. We don't swear in our programs. We don't allow our clients to swear in our programs. It's not a confrontive, in-your-face situation. It's more of helping people realize what their lifestyle has done to their life and how it can be different or better. There's a lot of very therapeutic and clinical approaches that are based in science. It's not the old style programming that many people may think when they reflect on their own experience.
So now, the one thing that you hear a lot is that somebody will not change unless they are ready to. And as maybe a family member who's watching, their family member go through this difficult time and continuing to make the same mistakes and not seeing the light or getting better, it has to be very hard. And they have to be thinking, what can I do in order to help this family member get to that bottom to kind of rise up. So, is there anything that the family member can do in order to help the other?
Well, I think there's a lot of myths that keep people from getting help, and one of them is that you have to hit bottom or you have to be ready. You can't make someone, and that's wrong. Statistics show that that's wrong. And I can tell you it's wrong in a lot of ways. First of all, there's no bad motivation or bad reason to get well or to get better. So the motivations many times come from family. My wife's going to leave me if I don't. Family interventions, court, they get in trouble, legal reasons. So many times people show up to us and are not wanting to do this, So it's externally motivated. However, through the process, what happens is people get to take a look in the mirror. They get to take a look at their life and what's going on. And it gives them a chance to pause and reflect, and the motivation then changes to more internal. I want this. This is good for me. So even though the external motivation got them there, I think the key part is that it has to at some point turn to, this is something important to me, and I want my family, I want my children to love and respect me. There's a lot of reasons that change that from external to internal.
What would you say has been your best success story throughout the years?
Gosh, that's just hard to say because we see so many, and they're so close to our heart. It's hard for me to pick one. I have my own favorites because as a counselor, I've treated people, and then I continue to see them in the community and hear about their successes, and I guess that I can just say that people go from a place of their life revolves around the drug or the alcohol, and there's so much destruction in so many areas of their life, relationships, education, employment, whatever, and to see the life of recovery that can have them returning to school and becoming successful in whatever is their choice of profession, and the relationships returning to health in their families with their kids. I think that's so it's hard for me to pick one, but there are just so many that are so close to my heart.
Very cool. So now, how would you say, back in 2009 when the economy took a tank, has that affected? Did you guys see a rise in individuals, even though our economy was still decent and has been good throughout all of it? Did you see any of that pressure?
Well, I think that North Dakota has been somewhat removed from what the nation has been going through. We see a lot of trends. It's hard to sometimes put a finger on it, but for example, we see increase in admissions in spring. And and it turns out that maybe after a long winter, people are depressed and have been drinking or using drugs, and so our services really have a high demand in the springtime. Prior to the flood, we were very, very busy. The flood happened, and we really saw a decrease in demand for services. Now, if you really look at the research on community crises, you'll see things like in New York with September 11th that you survived during the time of the crisis and for the months after and whatever. The real demand for mental health and substance abuse services it's a delayed reaction. Okay. It comes a year later. It comes after some of that. So have we seen a change in the economy or admissions because of that? Yes, we have. I'd say the oil patch has been a big significant factor. Okay. Even Minot, the lack of services in western North Dakota, with the increase in more transient population, people are coming to town or to the state looking for methadone, which is a maintenance for recovery, which North Dakota doesn't do methadone programs. Oh, okay. So there's definitely a lot of increase or different circumstances because of what we're seeing going on in our communities.
Now, you had mentioned earlier that you think we have the highest rate for alcohol because it's kind of a part of our culture. What can we do as a society to change that? I mean, what do you specifically think we need to do in order to get alcohol out of not be the main front of our culture?
Well, I think that there's a lot. That's a tough question, and
that's why I asked it. No.
I think it starts with the leaders, parents, teachers, community leaders, and policymakers. A lot of times when this is brought up in maybe even the legislative body, many people go, "What, us? That's not us. We're..." So it's hard to take a look in our own backyard, and that's important without being defensive about it, but to say, how do we as a family or as a community, how do we celebrate, how do we mourn, what is expected or allowed of our children, and to be able to say, well, instead of saying, I did it, when I was younger, they're going to do it anyway, to be able to sit down with your kids and say, this is not okay. It's important that you do what you need to do as a child before you become ingrained in doing things that are adult-like. For example, I had a German exchange student come live with me, and he was just appalled with how the youth in our community drink alcohol. Oh, wow. And, he'd been in Germany where he was allowed to drink since he was 16. But yet it was such a different experience. And we tend to hold our rights, our civil rights, very strong. And for example, when you get a DUI, many people are like, they're victims. And and the real truth of it is that my family, my wife, my child, drive on those roads at night.
Exactly.
Your loved ones drive on that road, and the thing about it is that you're driving at night when you're seeing someone coming at you, and you're kind of looking to the right of the road, and you're trusting that they're going to be on the side that they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And drinking and driving's not okay. And to have a license is a right, not a privilege. And our culture, the people of North Dakota, tend to believe that that's my right. And I made a mistake, and people make mistakes. Personally, I had 2 DUIs. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I've done that. I know that, but it's not okay. And multiple DUIs should have stronger punishments with it.
I fully believe in that too. So really quick before we have to go, so how do people hear about Heartview Foundation? Where do they go if they need more information?
We got a great website, www.heartview.org. You can ask questions on the website. The questions come directly to me. I make a point of it to answer them as quickly as I can. You can call us at 701-222-0386. But walk in, come have a cup of coffee with me. It's a great place. We are great hosts. We really look forward to seeing people and people who come back to us. People who have been through our programs will be the first to say that we care about them. We care about their future and their lives. So.
Well, it's very obvious your passion, and thank you again for coming on this edition of City Chat with City Magazine. We really appreciate having you representing Heartview on our program. And everyone, thank you again for watching this edition of City Chat with City Magazine. Make sure to head to our website at thecitymag.com where you can watch past episodes, and make sure to pick up this issue of City Magazine with Mary Van Sickle of Dakota Media Access on the cover. Have a good day.